All right, guys, so we are starting the Industrial Revolution. Now, the big thing that you need to know about the Industrial Revolution that it requires coal and iron ore. It's going to start in England because if you look at your map for this week, you're going to see huge deposits of coal and iron ore, and the largest place where this is going to be is England, which is going to facilitate their explosion. One of the other big things that are going to come about is not only the understanding of factories and how they're going to lead to mass production, it's railroads. Railroads are going to move the raw materials into the factories, and then they're going to move the finished products from the factories to the consumers. And railroads are going to explode during period 5 and is going to change the way the world works and the world functions. Vanessa?
So we're in the period 5.
Right? Oh, we're in 5, girl. We're in 5. The day after we finish writing week is the day we're in 5. We're a week into period 5. All right, so overview. All of a sudden with the Industrial Revolution, we have a thing called the middle class. The middle class is going to shape because these are the people who are going to the factories. They're getting paid more than the people who are working farmland. However, they're obviously not going to be the wealthy. So we have this whole new thing that is going to be called the middle class. They are your factory workers. We call them the proletariat. Okay? They are going to be making more money. The average citizen is going to be making more money now than they've ever have during the Industrial Revolution. They're also going to be gaining the most political power because can you run a factory without workers? Okay, well back then. You could do it now with computers, but we're not talking about now. Okay, back then you couldn't run a factory without workers. So if all the workers pull together and demand stuff, will they have more political clout? Absolutely. That's called a union. They're going to develop during this period as well. All right, so we're also going to see the development of a thing called Marxism. What's the common name we use for Marxism? Aiden? Communism. Communism is also going to start developing around this time period, which makes a lot of sense. When something first starts, does it start smoothly or does it start with a lot of issues? With a lot of issues. And industrialization is not excused from that. They're going to have issues with having houses where people live. They're going to have issues with breathing. For instance, air quality is going to be a huge deal. We're going to have issues with the environment. We're going to be over-harvesting a lot of materials. We're also going to have issues with what we do with all the chemicals. For the first time, mass production of chemicals is going to be required in order to make goods, products cheaper and faster. What did we do with all the waste? We dumped them into the rivers, into our oceans, and all that stuff. That's going to have a ton of negative consequences. Oil was really heavily used during the Industrial Revolution because we have iron machines, steel machines. A byproduct of oil is what? Petroleum is going to come to a degree, but what's another major byproduct that's now the pretty much sole focus of why we use oil? Gas. Gas. During the Industrial Revolution, they had no purpose for gas because gas would catch on fire too fast. It would burn too fast. Oil burns slower, which is why it's inside of all of your engines and stuff. Okay? So what they used to do is just light all the gas on fire. Used to just have massive lakes of gasoline. When they separated all the oil and stuff, they would put it into these massive bays. All the factories would drain out to these massive bays of water. Well, it's not really water, it's gasoline, and they would just light it on fire. That's how they got rid of the gas. They would just light it on fire because they had no need for it. So is that going to create a lot of breathing issues? What do you think inside the factories? What do you think it's like? Even today, going into a modern day factory, okay? Is it good, clean air or no? No, absolutely not. So we have a lot of issues, and these things are going to have to be addressed. Okay? So when we talk about it, we have environmental catastrophes. We're going to overharvest, we're going to overgrow, and we're going to cut down a lot of stuff. We're also going to be creating chemicals for the first time the world's never seen in order to make goods faster and better. We're also going to have social ills. That is going to be the overpopulation of our cities. We're going to have no cleaning crew. Sanitation does not exist. Okay? There's no plumbing in most of our cities. So where are all the bodily functions going? The streets, absolutely. So if you have horse poop, because that's going to be the most common type of transportation still at this time, horse poop, human feces, all of your trash from your kitchen table, all of it sitting in your streets, what's going to happen to the population living in it? Cholera, tuberculosis, smallpox, measles, all these things are going to be exploding. We're going to have to deal with those types of things, and that's why we start having really immunizations are going to start popping up. So, Great Britain is where it starts. The reason why it starts in Great Britain is for many different reasons. First of all, they have food surplus, which means they have more food than they need. When you have more food than you need, then people can focus on other things. Originally, what did we call this? You can raise your hand and tell me. Originally, Micah. Perfect. So we're going to have essentially a second coming of that. Okay? People no longer need to farm. They can go work in a factory. They can make more money in a factory, so it's even more. Disposable income. What's disposable income? You can raise your hand and tell me. Disposable income. What do we got? Aiden. Money you can waste on stuff. Money that you waste on stuff is not paying your taxes, is not paying your, putting gas in your car, it's not paying your bills. That's like real income that you need. Disposable income is deciding to go to Chipotle for dinner tonight. And that's what I'm having for dinner before I go to work tonight. Okay, so I'm going to go to Chipotle. Instead of going home and having a practical meal, I am getting a burrito bowl, and I'm so excited. Okay? I'm going to spend it on that, clothes, buying shoes, purses, coats, ties, all those things you don't necessarily have as disposable income. People aren't going to go and buy goods if they don't have the money. England has plenty of money to spend, but nowhere to spend it. We're going to satisfy that need, of course, and population increases. More people who are buying things, we also have a larger labor supply. Okay? So, it's going to start in Britain because they have coal and they have tons of iron ore, as Sophia knows because she did her map. It was miserable. Okay? They also have a very small country. To the north of England, by Scotland, there's tons of iron, there's tons of coal. Now, England is an island, it's very small. So to get the coal from northern England to the factories in London, is it that long of a journey? Is it that hard to do? No. So on your map, you're going to see all these like million different railroads that are connecting northern Italy and northern Italy. Italy ain't doing anything at this point, by the way. Northern England to southern England is because it's moving all the natural resources down. So, river and canal system. They've had rivers and canal systems since the second agricultural revolution in the 1400s, where we're going to have food surplus again for the second time. And they also are going to export to their colonies. They have people who will be forced to buy their goods. Okay? Remember, here in the United States, we had to buy English goods, correct? They could ban and import, export and import, and they can call what's okay and what's not okay, which means they can force the colonies to buy, which means you have the people to buy it. If you have all of these t-shirts that you produce, but no one's going to buy it, does it do you any good? By the way, that's an awesome shirt, dude. An awesome shirt. So, the colonies were the ones being forced into it. Okay, so, the major things that you need to know is the flying shuttle and the power loom. Those are the two you really need to know. Stop for 2 seconds and just look at this. You do need to understand how a textile is made. A, because they love it on your exam, and textiles are going to be the largest produced good during the Industrial Revolution. None of you have made your own clothes for today, have you? None of you made your own cloth today. Can we agree? People have stopped making cloth since the 1810s. Stopped. 18 teens. People have just stopped doing it because it's too expensive to make. The reason is Industrial Revolution. The largest, most produced good during the Industrial Revolution is textiles. Textiles are just the cloth, clothiers buy the textiles to make the clothes. Eventually, our factories are going to be making the clothes as well, but originally it's textiles. So how it happens, okay, here's your little machine, okay? You have strings that go this way. When you have a power loom, did you guys have to learn this stuff? Hello? No? Okay. Alright, that's fine. Okay, so when you have a textile machine, you have strings that go this way. Okay, threads that go this way. Okay? These are just, like if you look at your fabric of your shirt, okay, pull it out. You're going to see that you have, in this shirt, and I didn't even mean it, you have very clear lines that go up, correct? And then you have very clear lines that go across. Look at your shirt, people. They're using the same type of technology. With that being said, so you have straight lines that go this way, and then you have what we call a power loom, a flying shuttle, which is a little wooden piece back then. They have string tied to it, and it would fly across the loom, which is why it's called the flying shuttle. And then once it was there, they would pack it, they would pull it tight, and then they would switch the loom, and then they would send it back. So essentially, they're making like a layered top of a pie. Have you ever seen the lattice work on top of a pie? That's what they're doing. They would layer it and then switch it, send it through again, switch it. So all of a sudden you're essentially stacking the threads, and eventually that'll become clothes. The flying shuttle is going to accelerate the amount of thread that can be made into textiles by almost 1,000%. Beforehand, you had to have a person push it through, then reset the loom, had to like pull it through with their hand on the other side. So can you have a wide thing of fabric or a very small thing of fabric? If you had to do it by hand, it had to be small. With a flying shuttle, you could do up to 30 feet across. Is that a huge change? Absolutely. So all of a sudden, your looms are no longer like 3 feet apiece. Your looms are now 30 feet. And today, they have looms that are like 150 feet. Can you imagine how big that factory is? That you can have a 150-foot machine in the middle of it? Like, that's insane. Okay, so that's what the flying shuttle is. The mule, okay, is going to be the thread. Have you ever seen the spinster wheel? We have typically an old lady sitting there, and there's a big wheel spinning, and then she's sitting there with a little thread. She has like a bucket of wool, and she's just sitting there, and by the end there's like a wheel, like Sleeping Beauty, there you go. Well, he takes it and mechanizes it, and he can make 100 more thread per minute than a power wheel could do in about an hour, which is pretty cool. The power loom is the machine that kind of switches it. Okay, it's this. What I was kind of describing is the power loom. It's the one that kind of goes back and forth. Massachusetts, this is what we were known for, is our textile production. And the town I was from was very proud of their heritage. We were known for our textiles and our shoes. Yep. An exciting time. So, in high school and in elementary school, we had to go to see the old looms. And they would show us how they did it. Woo! Who knew I'd actually be using it, right? Who knew? All my other friends had no idea. All right, steam engine, big deal. Steam engine will be originally used for factories. Eventually, it'll be used in ships, obviously railroads as well. All right, the steam engine is going to be created by James Watt, okay? And it's going to be coal-fired. Kind of like you've seen the movie Titanic. They're underneath, and they're scooping it in, and then they heat water. Okay, for a steam engine, you need to have what? Steam, absolutely. So you have to be near water. Okay, you have to have a large access of water. Now, what can't you use in a steam engine, originally at least? What can you use? When you're using iron ore, what can you use with a hand max? I don't know why we have to go through it pretty much every day, but what? What can't you use with iron? Dean? No, you have to use water. You can't have steam without water. What type of water can't be used?
Salt. Salt water.
Oh my God, Dean, did you just say liquid water? Did you just say liquid water? What the hell? If it's not liquid, we call it ice.
Well, then what do we call, I guess, vapor? Water vapor?
Vapor, that would be steam. There's only three. Isn't there only three? Yeah. Okay.
I thought it was the water vapor.
You can't use salt water, ladies and gentlemen. Salt water corrodes iron. Okay? You can use it with steel, which is what the turbines of your steel engines are going to be used, and especially in your ocean travel, because they're not going to bring fresh water to go through the steam engine. They're going to use ocean water, but they have to use steel. Okay? Iron, you have to have it near fresh water. Okay? So that means you have to be along a river. Okay? Now, where in the United States are we going to have a lot of factory production? Where in the United States do we have factory production? Max?
Around Lake Erie.
Around Lake Erie. Where else? Where's the biggest? Where are the big ones going to be? New England. Now, New England is where I'm from, which is why I've been to a factory. And during my many field trips in elementary school and middle school, been to Plymouth Plantation 6 times. Do you know what you don't need to see 6 times? Plymouth Plantation. Anyway, okay, so with these up north, we have a lot of rivers. We have a lot more mountains than you do. We have snow, water, and all that stuff. Our rivers are also at more of an incline. Up north, we have much bigger terrain differences, which means the water is moving faster, Okay, we have a lot more of it because we have mountains, which means we have more snowcaps, which means we have more water coming down during the summer. So in New England, we have faster moving rivers. We have all freshwater rivers coming down. Because of that, we have much more factories up there than we do down here. Down here, do we have a lot of fast moving rivers? No. In our rivers down here, you actually have a lot more mud in your rivers. If you look at the Mississippi, if you look at a bunch of your other rivers, St. John's River is pretty good. But the biggest problem is, why isn't the South really industrializing? Why isn't it? Dean? Because it's flat. But what else does the South have going for them, Aiden? Cotton. Now, if the largest production of goods is textiles, what are textiles made out of? Cotton. So if you already have the foundation of industry base ready to go of cotton, why would you build factories if you're making the most money off of raw materials? That's exactly what's going to happen. Because of the Industrial Revolution, the price of cotton is going to explode. It is going to be one of the most valuable items on Earth. Now there's going to be another major invention that allows it to get that way, but Industrial Revolution is going to allow it to happen. And that industrialized thing is going to be talked about here in a second. All right, so iron and steel, you do need to know the Bessemer converter. It is done by Henry Bessemer. He's Irish. It's going to be brought from Ireland to Pittsburgh. Who's bringing it to Pittsburgh? Who's bringing it, Max?
Henry Bessemer.
No, Bessemer's in Ireland. Who brings it from Ireland to Pittsburgh? Max.
William Pitt.
No.
Something like that. I remember learning about this years ago. They were trying to keep all trade secrets in England. Someone brought it over.
Oh, those are factory plans, yes. Factory plans are going to be smuggled over, and they're going to be brought to the town right on the border of Massachusetts and New Hampshire. On the other side of the border is Tinsbury, and I can't think of the name of the Massachusetts town that's right there that it's smuggled into. That is the industrial center of New England, and I can't think about it, but I can describe it to you. But I can't tell you what the name of it is at the moment. It's killing me. Andrew Carnegie! Ever heard of him? Carnegie Hall in New York is named after him. He makes his money. He goes from like a poor, pretty decent, middle-class kid, and then turns him into a steel tycoon. Yes! Pittsburgh Steelers football team is because Carnegie takes Bessemer's process from Ireland and brings it to Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, he starts his steel production mill using the Bessemer process, and he drops the price of steel 250%. He will mass produce steel, completely change the landscape of America and around the world with this process because of his mass production. Now before, city buildings in New York, Boston, Chicago could not go over 7 stories. Why? Why can't they go over 7 stories, David?
They didn't have steel to support the building.
Yeah, what would happen?
It was all-
It would fall because of the weight of the building would cause it to collapse. So it was against the law to build over the 6th floor in New York. Well, can you have a thriving metropolis with all these people moving in, all these factories and stuff happening if you can't build over 6 stories? No, absolutely not. So the steel that Andrew Carnegie builds in Pittsburgh is going to be connected to the rest of the United States via railroads, and because of that, we have sky rises. If it wasn't for Carnegie and the Bessemer process, we wouldn't have skyscrapers. We wouldn't have railroads. We wouldn't have so many things. It's a huge transformative thing. Big, 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 big deal. Pittsburgh also has the most railroad tracks of any place in the world. The sad thing is, most of them aren't being used because Pittsburgh is kind of starting to shut down after the Industrial Revolution, but that's okay. Henry Bessemer. Railroads, coming back to railroads. Railroads are going to be invented in 1815. That's going to be your first steam-powered locomotive. Because of that invention, it's going to completely transform. The reason why railroads are a big deal is we need to move raw materials to factories, then we need to move the finished products from the factories to consumers. Okay? So all of these things need to be moved. Coal is heavy, iron, steel is heavy. All of these raw materials are heavy. All these finished products are heavy. Railroads are going to do it. It's also going to transform, especially in America, because of railroads, people are going to start traveling out west. I'm sorry, are you going to walk from Mississippi to California? Because when we talk about westward expansion, the first couple people out there are walking from the Mississippi to California. There's nothing out there. One of the first things we start doing is we figure out, obviously we got to connect all of our factories to our natural resources, Pittsburgh and New York and all that stuff. We got to connect them. And then people are like, let's do this. Let's just connect the coast. And then they start the Transcontinental Railroad, and then we have a massive power of people moving out there, and Manifest Destiny, all those wonderful types of things are all happening. All right, to the boards. Here we go. On your whiteboard, please tell me what two things are absolutely required when doing Industrial Revolution. You can't have it without these two things. It's 3 words, but 2 things. 3 words, 2 things. Jessica.
Coal and iron ore.
Coal and iron ore. You can't do either without coal and iron ore. On your whiteboard, please tell me, what is the first country to industrialize? What is the first country to industrialize? Good. Micah. Britain. On your whiteboard, please tell me, give me 3 reasons why England was the first to industrialize besides they have coal and iron ore. Give me other reasons. Give me 2 other reasons why England is the first to industrialize beyond the fact that yes, they do have coal and iron ore. Good. Cheyenne, what do you got?
Surplus food and disposable income.
There you go. Surplus food, disposable income. Give me something else. Jack.
High population, so like labor supply.
Labor supply. Absolutely. Anything else? What do you got, Isabel?
Imperial colonies.
They have the colonies. They can force them to buy. Absolutely. Please tell me what invention is going to transform the American landscape. It is going to transform our cities so we can start building upwards. It's also going to transform how things are made. Also is going to be the major cause with the process. What is the process? Aiden. Best American Converter. And it's going to be championed here in the United States by Andrew Carnegie. On your whiteboard, please tell me what invention is going to transform transportation. It'll be the single most important invention for the movement of people, the movement of goods. What is it, Emily?
Railroads.
Railroads. I know, today we don't take railroads seriously at all. True, no, true. So sad. They are still highly used. That's how we move all of our goods around the United States. Anyway. All right, grow the factory. So we have massive machines that need to be housed. We have a massive labor supply that needs to be homed. We also have a transport of raw materials. Okay? So we start having a factory system, which we're putting people together. So the factory system is you put workers, machines all together in one room. When you think of a factory, you're thinking of the factory system. Big open space, lots of machines, lots of people working, and someone walking around supervising. Factory system. So, are the conditions good or bad? They're terrible. Terrible working conditions. There's absolutely 0 regulations on what you can and cannot do. It is up to the moral guideposts of your factory owner. Now, if you're a factory owner, are you in it for the goods, good nature, or are you in it for the money?
Money.
You're in it for the money. So, do we think that our factory owners are really going to be looking out for the best interests of their people or for themselves? It's going to be a lot for themselves, which is why conditions are going to be terrible. Now, what 2 groups of people are going to be the most common workers? What 2 groups of people are going to be your common workers? Max?
Proletariat.
Okay, no. Who are they? Who makes up the proletariat? Proletariat is the term for everyone in the factories. Max? Okay, who is making up our factory workers? Who is actually going to be in the factories making the goods? Isabella?
Women.
Women! Yes! Why are women in the factories, Isabella?
Because they don't really have any other option.
Why?
No one wants to employ women.
Why else are we preferring a lot of women?
They have nimble hands.
Oh my god, no. Jessica.
They can pay them less.
They can pay them less. Who else do we have in the factories that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be in the factories, Jack?
Children.
Children! Why do we have children, Jack?
Because you can pay them less.
You can pay them less, and they have really small hands and a little small parts of the machines. Women were really used for their small hands. It's the children. That's why we have children. Okay. Typical average wage at the turn of the century is going to be 5 cents for child per hour, 10 cents for a woman, 35 cents for a man. Why the hell would you hire a man when you can hire a bunch of chicks and a kid? Okay? That's exactly it. You can get 3 women and a kid for the price of 1 man. So who's working in the factories the most? Women. Okay? And that's going to be the biggest thing. There's going to be some men, but men are all going to be in the supervising positions, of course. They're so much smarter than us, ladies. They need us to look over us and guide us, tell us what to do. So we're going to have a bunch of movements and stuff like that. Unions are going to rise out of this, which is good. Now, Western Europe is going to start. Now, I would do the spread of industrialization would be my next title. Okay, it starts in England. It spreads to Germany, Belgium, and France. Now, there's a caveat to it spreading to France. It literally gets to France just before the French Revolution occurred. So, do you think the French really have the time to deal with this during the French Revolution?
So much time.
So, during Napoleon's reign, so during the French Revolution, when they were literally burning down their government and chopping off their heads of their kings, they were a little distracted politically, not really building up their economy. Makes a lot of sense. You know, reign of terror. I think we can all agree no one's really thinking about factories. But during Napoleon, after a couple years of Napoleon power, he starts like, okay, we got to build up our economy. And he starts pushing towards industrialization, which was one of the best things that he did in order to help. Now, one of the good things that happened because of the Napoleonic Wars is that there's a breakdown of trade barriers. Because of the Napoleonic Wars, and Napoleon conquers such a large territory for about 20 years, everyone is trading with everyone else, and there's an openness of trade. So as soon as the Napoleonic age is over, are people willing to slam their doors shut, or are they dependent on goods from other countries? They're dependent on goods from other countries, which is why Europe today has a European Union, which is a bit of a disaster at the moment. But they've had a European Union because they depend so much on each other, and really that comes out of the Napoleonic age, which is kind of cool to see the footprints of it. Also, Bismarck. What is Bismarck's full name? What is Bismarck's full name, Max? Otto von Bismarck, who believes in blood and iron. He believes in blood and iron because he believes Germany needs to industrialize as quickly and as fast as it possibly can. Now, the cool thing about Germany obviously needs factories because industrialization is based on factories, but instead of building textiles, he's building machines. He's using machines to build machines. That was like such a crazy idea back then. Like, you're using machines to build machines. Like today, do you think about it? We build computers to build other computers. Like, that's crazy. That is how crazy it was for Otto von Bismarck. And his industrialization is going to surge. And Germany is really going to push what component of industry? Aiden.
I was gonna say war manufacturing.
Yeah, if you're buying guns and bullets, where are you buying them from, Aiden?
Germany.
Germany. Even in the United States, you're buying German goods. Okay? That's exactly how it works. Because the Germans are the ones who are going to perfect weapons. Even still today. What's the name of the most common pistol? Does anyone know? The cops carry them. That's one of the bigger ones. Yeah, but the 9mm is the measurement. Glocks are what cops carry. That actually was, it's a German design from German factories. Not anymore. We now have American companies that make them, but it's all coming from there. So North America and the Americas. Okay? When people talk about German weapons, oh my god, this German gun is great. The reason is because the Germans are the ones making mass producing guns first. In front of everyone. They're war. You don't think that's cool? I hate all of you. This is real stuff, people. Just keep staring at me. It's fine. I can talk to myself. I do it all day. Here we go. Industrialization in North America. So it begins in the 1820s in New England. Why does it happen in New England? I already told you the answer. Why is it happening in New England, not in the South? Lily? Where? In New England?
Oh, just kidding.
Thank you for listening, by the way. Why is it happening in New England?
It's the South cotton.
The South has cotton, yes.
They have
They do have coal. We're getting it from not Wisconsin. Wisconsin was born. We're getting it from West Virginia. Why does it happen in New England, Vanessa?
The rivers are faster.
The rivers are faster. We have a lot of clean water coming through. Okay. We also don't have cotton, which is what Lily said to start. Okay. We don't have cotton, which means we need something to kind of produce. Okay. And it's easy transportation from the south, correct? It's not that far away, especially on a train, which is why we first have the first major trains coming from the north to the south. Okay. The idea of connecting a train all the way to Florida doesn't happen until the 1920s. Under 1900s. Who's doing that? HB Plant! But don't worry, my man Henry Flagler beat him. I went to Flagler. Okay, they're rivals. It's ironic. I worked at HB Plant High School when I went to the rivals. Oh, shut up, Lily. Okay. Second. Anyway, the United States is going to start in New England because the South is going to be doing their cotton production. Okay? 1900s, the U.S. is a economic powerhouse. So, mass production is going to play a big key role. Now, textiles are going to be the largest produced good during the Industrial Revolution. And to make textiles, you need to have cotton. Now, it is actually like such a surprising thing when you stop and think about it. But slavery here in the United States almost ended completely naturally in the 1790s. Okay? Almost ended completely naturally. Like, it would cost too much to keep slaves. So people were starting to free their slaves because it was too expensive to have them for the amount of money they were getting out of them. Because cotton is really hard. Why is cotton production really hard historically? Why is it really hard historically? Oh my God, people. Isabella.
It takes a lot of work, but you don't really get much out of it.
Why does it take so much work?
Because you're like picking the cotton.
Okay, picking cotton is a pain. But why is it a lot of work? Aiden.
Don't you have to process it after you pick it?
Yeah, okay, so if you've never seen cotton, it comes, it grows, it's a green plant, and then they let it die, and then it turns into like a brown plant with a big poof of white. Okay? The reason why it hurts so bad is because the little bloom, what used to be green around the bloom of cotton, gets sharp and it kind of like dies like that, and then the cotton's right here. So to get the cotton, you have to be stabbed essentially by what was formerly green, now brown. So you pull out the cotton, which is hard to do, and it will totally cut up your hands and stuff. And inside the cotton is you have the seeds. Remember, the cotton bloom is actually like a flower that kind of dies, and then that's what cotton is, it's the threads. So inside the bloom, you have all the seeds. Well, historically, it takes, for an hour of plucking out just the seeds, it takes 10 pounds of cotton is what can get out of one person sitting there for an hour and kind of cleaning it out. When you do it, you have to pluck out the seeds, and then you have to pull the cotton apart, and then you lie it flat. And then they wrap it in brown paper and tie it, and that's what gets sent north to the factories. Okay? So for every one person sitting there and just dealing with processed cotton, it can only do about 10 pounds an hour. Okay? Does that sound like a worthy time? Okay, so a guy named Eli Whitney, which you need to know, creates a thing called the cotton gin. And what it looks like is a bunch of hairbrushes. And the hairbrushes essentially just go like this, and then they kind of paddle it out. So what happens is the hairbrushes pull the threads and separate the threads from the seeds. So the seeds fall to the base of the cotton gin, and all you have is the thread. So all you have to do as the worker of the cotton gin is all you have to do is turn it, and then once the pads of the brushes get too thick, all you do is take your hands and you pull through essentially the bristles of what look like hairbrushes, and then all you have to do is lay it on down flat. So one person in 1 hour can do 200 pounds of cotton. Does that change things? Because cotton is worthless sitting on the bloom. Cotton is worthless if it takes so long. So slavery almost ended naturally before the invention of the cotton gin. Because of the cotton gin, people for the first time in the United States are buying slaves at 3 times the amount they've ever bought them in the United States. For the first time, cotton is affordable to make, which means the profits are skyrocketing. The cotton gin is what transformed the American South. The American South is in the fear of losing their slaves, the paranoia about losing their slaves, the slave rebellions. The reason why the American South was so harsh and so dead set about losing their slaves is because their entire economy was based on it, and racism was always there. I mean, they were taking Africans, but racism becomes even more extreme because of the fear of there's so many Africans in the South that they outnumbered the white people like 45-1. And in some areas in Alabama and Mississippi, almost 109-1. So the idea of keeping them at bay, keeping the fear of them, beating them, and all this really harshness was because of the cotton gin, because for the first times having slaves making cotton was incredibly lucrative. And the idea of having this many slaves is going to bring in, not that slavery was ever nice, but it only made worse because of the cotton gin, because they had so many slaves to make so much more cotton, all this stuff, and then here we are. Lauren, did you have a question? Okay, you also need to know Henry Ford in your assembly line. He's a big deal. He is going to mass produce cars. He is going to come up with this whole idea that one person does one job, and if one person only has to focus on one thing, like I'm in charge of the left lug nut. All I do is go, By the end of, 4 years, 14 hours a day, 70 hours a week, I'm pretty good at screwing in that left lug nut. Would you agree? Yes, damn good. Okay, and that's what assembly line's all about. So all of a sudden we start having big business, large startup capital. Okay, corporations are going to start. What makes a corporation a corporation? What makes a corporation a corporation? What do they have that other companies don't? Like if I start a cookie company right now, will I be a corporation? No. I'm Miss Bennett making cookies in the middle of the night to sell to high school students so I can make an extra buck. By the way, I'm not allowed to do that. What makes a corporation a corporation, Aiden?
Multiple businesses, board of directors.
Okay, multiple businesses. The reason why it's multiple businesses is because you have multiple business interests. The reason why you have multiple business interests. So I'm going to start a cookie company. I make bomb cookies. Okay? I do. They're pretty good. They're not that great, but that's fine. Okay? Imagine I make the most incredible cookies. So in order to start my business, I need $100. Okay? I only have $20. Okay? So I'm going to go to Adrian and be like, oh my God, girl, I have an amazing opportunity. And I saw you on your idea. And you're like, oh my God, Miss Bennett, I believe in you. So here's $20. So I'm like, all right, I got $20 from here. I do the same pitch. And Lily's like, yes, here's $20. Then Vanessa's like, oh my God, please take all my money. And she hands me $20 too. Jessica's like, let me in on this. Okay? So I start baking money. Wouldn't that be awesome? Start making money. I'm going to start baking my cookies. I have 5 investors who each gave me $20. When I start getting my profits, I owe 20% to Adrian. I owe 20% to her. I owe 20% to her. I owe 20%. When you have a corporation, you have stockholders. They're investing money into your business, and they receive a share of the profits, which means corporations have multiple investors pulling their money together that need to be paid out in dividends or pay out every quarter. Does that make sense? Okay. This makes it easier for companies to start. Starting a company does not cost $100. Okay. Even back then, it's going to cost thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Today, it takes millions. Getting a lot of people, then you pay them back on their investment. 20% of, you've chipped in 20% to start, you get 20% of the profits. That's how you kind of swing it. That is a corporation. Does that make sense? Everyone's clear? Makes it easier to start a business. Can we agree? All right, to the boards. On your whiteboard, please tell me who invented the cotton gin. You've heard of this guy before, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a big deal.
Didn't he knock out his patent or something?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't file it correctly. He made an error in the original patent, which is why he didn't have to listen to it. Who is it? Cheyenne. Eli Whitney. Who's the man behind the assembly line? Good. Sophia. And report on your whiteboard. Please give me my give me 4 industrialized countries. Give me 4 industrialized countries. I have a headache. I have a headache. I have a headache. Good. Jack, what do we got?
France, England, Germany, and US.
There you go. France, England, Germany, and the U.S. On your whiteboard. Oh my God, Jessica, what have you done to me? Sorry. On your whiteboard, please tell me what is the name of. No, we're going to move on. All right. Okay, Adrian, can you hit the arrow, please, before I get yelled at? All right. So what we're going to have is monopolies and trusts. Monopolies is when one company dominates a specific market. J.D. Rockefeller is probably the most famous. Andrew Carnegie is also damn famous. Rockefeller is going to be famous for controlling oil. A monopoly means that they control the market completely and wholly, which means, who is this? Alex is not here. Alright, so J.D. Rockefeller is going to be he's going to control all the oil. Now keep in mind, during this time period, oil is going to be way more important than its secondary supply of gas. When you have raw crude oil, you separate, crude oil is the blend of gasoline and oil, like black oil. That's what crude oil is. So you have to separate it out. And back in the Industrial Revolution, crude oil was necessary, not crude oil, oil was necessary because it has a lower burning temperature and it doesn't get as hot as gasoline does, which makes it easier and more consistent of a burn, and a slower burn, which means you use more oil because it keeps the temperature on a much even level. Do you see how much useless knowledge I have about factories? This is because I grew up in New England. All right. So what they have to do is they have to separate it because it used to just come all in one big package. So they used to have to separate the gasoline from the crude oil. Do you know what they used to do with the gasoline?
Throw it in the lakes and burn it.
Yeah, they just kind of send it off. They separate it and they would put it in these like lake-looking things. And then they would just light it on fire and just burn it off. And some factories even have the technology they could just burn it in one of their stacks. So if they're just burning gasoline for no reason, they're literally burning it just to get rid of it. What do you think England, France, oh my God. What do you think London, New York, Chicago, Boston look like? A very, very dirty black smoke all the time. Very hard to breathe. You're having a lot of respiratory infections, all those different types of things. All right. Population growth is going to increase. Now, it is important to know that industrialization is going to lead to an increased human population, but a decrease in fertility. You have more people having children, but the people having children are having less children. And that's, oh no, good, thank you. The people who are having children are having less. The idea of just having 2 kids, 3 kids is an industrialized idea. That only happens because of industrialization. Now, in order to stop having children, you have to have control over reproductive, correct? So the idea of contraception is really going to come into play here. Now, the reason why there's going to be a population increase, even though family size is shrinking, is because we have more people. We also have longer lives. People are living longer because we have better drugs, we have immunizations, we have disease control. We're going to figure out pretty quickly during the Industrial Revolution of what is getting people sick and how can we stop it. We're also going to be addressing a lot of the social issues like sanitation issues, as well as other issues that are happening. Now, contraception. Now, contraception may seem like kind of like a small thing, but it's actually a huge transformative thing on 2 major fronts. Okay? Now, who is the major workforce in factories? Women and children. So, if your wife is going to a factory every single day for 14 hours a day, except for Sundays, do you need her paycheck or do you not need her paycheck? You need her paycheck, absolutely. In the middle class, both men and women are typically working. The idea of having a stay-at-home mom is a 1950s idea. Women, as soon as the industrialization started, were working alongside men in factories. Men are usually a little higher because they're supervising, but women are working. If women get pregnant, can they work? You also have more mouths to feed, which take away from the money coming in. You also have to deal with child care, which is for the first time an issue society is dealing with. So the idea of having contraception, condoms, birth control, is really going to pop up because of industrialization. Now, one of the big thinkers who supported this, which is actually really funny because he's like a super like Christian guy, and Christians today don't believe in birth control, but he was like a super Christian guy. His name's Thomas Malthus. He believed that the world was going to be overpopulated by the 1920s. He thought we were all going to starve to death, that food was going to run out. Because of him, people start freaking out. Like, oh my God, we're going to die, there's too many people on the planet. So what people start doing is start taking him very seriously, and they allow contraception to be legal. We change contraception, we make it legal, we make it much more available. Condoms become much more common. Birth control, the pill is going to start being developed, even though it's not going to be fine-tuned till later. Diaphragms are also going to be created, and they're going to be given to women in order to stop reproduction. Now, the unseen side of contraception is that for the first time in human history, women are controlling when they can give birth. Is that a big deal? Yeah, you can stop. Now, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that the idea of having sex with your wife against her will wasn't considered rape until the 1940s. No, 1960s. Was it officially rape? It was kind of like, you shouldn't do it. But it is your wife, so do what you want. Okay? So, with that being said, women had really no control over their bodies. Contraception allows women to have the right over their bodies. Once we feel like we can kind of control ourselves, we want to control other things, like our government, our positions at work. And this contraception movement is going to have an unseen consequence of women wanting more rights, wanting equal pay, wanting a say in their government. So contraception is a huge deal, which is why when people talk about... Never mind. Goodbye.